What if I told you that Iran, yes, modern-day Iran, plays a critical role in the Bible's grand narrative of prophecy and world events? For centuries, the Bible has fascinated people from every corner of the globe, revealing a profound spiritual journey centered around God's chosen people and the nations surrounding them. Most people think of Israel, Egypt, and Babylon when discussing the Bible's geographical focus. But what if we told you there's a hidden chapter in this sacred text that centers on another nation, a chapter that many have overlooked? Iran, or Persia as it was known in biblical times, isn't just another ancient empire mentioned in passing. Persia's role in the Bible is far more influential and significant than most realize. This ancient kingdom, its people, leaders, and impact, has shaped world events, fulfilled prophecies, and intertwined itself with the story of God's people in a way that may surprise you. From the lineage of Noah to the reign of Cyrus the Great, Iran's history is woven into some of the most pivotal moments in biblical history. The history of Iran is not only ancient, but intricately connected to God's unfolding plan. The lineage of Persia dates back to the earliest chapters of the Bible, with connections to Noah and his descendants. Through centuries of history, Persia rose to prominence, dominating the ancient world and influencing events that would affect the fate of nations. But the most astonishing revelation is this: God used Persia, a land of pagan kings and foreign customs, as a vital tool to accomplish His divine will. In this video, we'll uncover how Persia appears throughout biblical prophecy and historical events, transforming from an empire of idol worship to a tool in God's hand. The story begins far back, not in the Old Testament prophecies alone, but all the way back to Noah's family and the spread of his descendants across the ancient world. Buckle up, because what you're about to learn will change the way you view Iran, not just as a nation in the modern world, but as a central player in God's unfolding plan for humanity. With this opening, we invite you to join us on a journey back in time, across ancient lands, to discover the mysterious and incredible story of Persia, how God used this nation to fulfill promises, protect His people, and lay the foundations for prophecies yet to unfold. You'll see Iran in a whole new light as we trace the Bible's narrative from Noah's descendants to the prophetic visions of the last days. What you're about to uncover may challenge everything you thought you knew about Iran in the Bible. To understand Iran's biblical roots, we must go back to the story of Noah and his descendants. After the Great Flood, humanity was given a second chance. Noah and his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, became the ancestors of all the nations on earth. This moment is recorded in Genesis 10, known as the Table of Nations, which maps the spread of Noah's descendants across the world. Each son would go on to father distinct peoples, cultures, and languages, forming the nations as we know them. Among Japheth's sons was Madai, and it is through Madai that we find a direct connection to the Medes, an ancient people who would later merge with another group, the Persians, to form the powerful Medo-Persian Empire. This empire would not only shape the ancient world, but also fulfill divine purposes set out by God. As the Bible recounts, Madai's descendants would settle in a region that became known as Media and eventually Persia, the land of modern-day Iran. This genealogical connection links the Iranian people to one of the oldest lineages in the Bible, embedding them in the story of God's people from the beginning of history after the flood. The descendants of Japheth, through Madai, began to populate regions stretching across Asia, forming the foundation for many great civilizations. One of the most prominent was the Medo-Persian Empire, which rose to unparalleled influence. This empire wasn't simply a footnote in history. It was to become an instrument in the hands of God. From the ancient text of Genesis, we see that Persia's place in the biblical narrative was established long before it became a historical superpower. The connection between Noah's lineage and the Medo-Persian Empire may seem like just a historical curiosity, but it's far more significant. By linking Iran's ancestry to the line of Japheth through Madai, the Bible roots Persia deeply within its genealogical and prophetic framework. This early mention foreshadows Persia's emergence as a vital piece in God's redemptive plan, giving it a role unlike any other. Fast forward several centuries, and we witness the rise of Persia, a kingdom destined to alter the course of history. As the descendants of Madai and other groups populated the region, Persia began to grow from a collection of tribes into a unified power. Initially overshadowed by its neighbors, the Medes and Persians would eventually unite under the legendary leader, Cyrus the Great. Together, they formed the First Persian Empire, also known as the Achaemenid Empire. Under Cyrus's rule, this empire became a beacon of strength, stretching from the Indus River to the edges of North Africa. Persia's expanse encompassed many of the major regions mentioned in the Bible: Babylon, Israel, and Egypt, to name a few. Yet, Persia's significance goes far beyond its military might or territorial reach. What sets Persia apart in the biblical story is its unique role in fulfilling God's promises, particularly toward the people of Israel. Through Cyrus, Persia would become a tool not of conquest but of deliverance, signaling a profound shift in Israel's history. This rise of Persia, detailed in the Bible, highlights its unique position within God's prophetic narrative, setting it up not only as a historical empire, but as a chosen vehicle for divine action. As we'll see, God's hand was unmistakably at work within this kingdom, directing the course of history through its leaders and decisions. The Babylonian Empire, led by the powerful King Nebuchadnezzar, conquered Jerusalem in 586 BC, decimating the city and destroying the Holy Temple. The people of Judah, who had called this land home for generations, were torn from their lives and taken into exile in Babylon. This captivity was not only a period of displacement, but also a time of immense sorrow, as they watched their traditions, culture, and very identity come under threat. The exile was a punishment foretold by the prophet Jeremiah, who had warned that the people would be taken captive for 70 years because of their disobedience to God. The Israelites remained in captivity in Babylon, clinging to their faith and yearning for the day they would return to their homeland. Little did they know that their deliverance would come from the most unlikely source: a king from a foreign empire, Persia, who did not share their beliefs, yet played a pivotal role in their story. When Cyrus entered Babylon as a conqueror, he did something utterly unexpected, something that would forever alter the lives of the captive Israelites. Rather than oppressing his new subjects, Cyrus issued a decree allowing the Israelites to return to their homeland and rebuild the temple that had been destroyed decades earlier. This moment is recorded in the book of Ezra, where Cyrus declares, "The Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth and has appointed me to build a temple for him at Jerusalem in Judah." For a pagan king to reference the God of Israel was unprecedented, yet Cyrus spoke as if he were divinely appointed for this task. What's more astonishing is that Cyrus had been mentioned by name in prophecy over a century earlier. In the book of Isaiah, written long before Cyrus's rise, the prophet refers to Cyrus as a shepherd and an anointed one who would fulfill God's purposes. This prophecy, found in Isaiah 44:28 and 45:1, names Cyrus explicitly, marking one of the most astonishing and direct fulfillments of prophecy in the Bible. Through Cyrus, the Persian Empire played a role that was more than political, it was spiritual. This decree was not just a royal proclamation, but a prophetic fulfillment. Jeremiah had foretold that the Babylonian captivity would last 70 years, and just as predicted, those 70 years concluded with Cyrus's rise to power. Through his leadership, the Israelites received a second chance to restore their identity, faith, and connection to God in their own land. Cyrus's actions allowed Israel to be reborn as a nation, free from the chains of Babylon. In biblical terms, Persia's intervention is seen as more than just historical happenstance. It's a powerful reminder that God's plans transcend borders, beliefs, and even empires. This deliverance of Israel through Persia showed that God could use anyone, even foreign rulers, to fulfill his promises and carry out his will. After Cyrus's reign, another Persian king, known in the Bible as King Xerxes, ruled over an empire that stretched from India to Ethiopia. During his reign, a dark plot emerged within the Persian court, one that threatened the very existence of the Jewish people. An ambitious official named Haman devised a plan to exterminate the Jews, driven by hatred and a desire for power. With a cunning strategy, Haman manipulated Xerxes into signing a decree that would allow for the annihilation of all Jews within the empire. This decree sent shockwaves through the Jewish community, who now faced a seemingly insurmountable threat. But God had prepared a deliverer, hiding in plain sight. Esther, a young Jewish woman who had risen to the unlikely position of queen, held the key to her people's survival. Encouraged by her cousin Mordecai, Esther chose to risk her life by revealing her Jewish heritage to the king. She bravely approached Xerxes, exposing Haman's plot and pleading for her people's protection. The king, upon learning of Haman's treachery, ordered his execution and issued a new decree allowing the Jews to defend themselves against their enemies. This stunning victory is commemorated in the Jewish holiday of Purim, a yearly reminder of how God used Persia to save his people from destruction. The story of Esther is not only about survival, but about divine providence. Through a seemingly ordinary sequence of events, God's hand was at work, weaving together a plan to save his people. Persia became a stage upon which this miraculous deliverance played out. The empire that had once been an outsider to Israel's covenant now became the very shield for its people. This legacy of protection further underscores Persia's role in God's unfolding plan. In the grand scheme, Persia was far more than a passing empire. It was a critical player, molded by God to safeguard his people, reminding Israel and the world that divine intervention often comes from the most unexpected places. The biblical prophecies surrounding Persia go beyond its historic influence. Through the prophet Daniel, God provides a glimpse into Persia's future and its role within a divine timeline that includes the destiny of empires. Daniel's visions are not simply predictions. They are symbolic revelations that unfold God's plan for humanity, with Persia playing a crucial role. In the book of Daniel, we encounter several visions that reveal the shifting tides of power across the ancient world, each empire rising and falling according to God's plan. Persia, identified as a significant empire within these visions, is shown as part of a divine sequence leading toward the fulfillment of God's ultimate purposes. This statue, as Daniel interprets, symbolizes 4 successive empires, each represented by a different material. The statue's silver chest and arms signify the Medo-Persian Empire, which would succeed Babylon as the dominant force in the ancient world. This image of silver suggests both strength and impermanence, reflecting Persia's powerful yet finite role in history. Nebuchadnezzar's dream was not simply about foretelling Persia's rise to power. It was a message that all empires, no matter how vast, are subject to God's sovereign will. Persia was destined to take the reins after Babylon, but it was also destined to yield to another power in due time. This dream shows that God's hand governs all nations, raising some up and bringing others down, with each empire serving a purpose in his grand design. In Daniel 7, we encounter another vision, a scene filled with 4 fierce beasts, each representing a different empire. The second beast, a bear raised up on one side, is symbolic of the Medo-Persian Empire. This imagery highlights the dual nature of the empire, formed by the combined strength of the Medes and Persians. The bear's strength and unyielding nature reflect Persia's ability to dominate and expand, conquering vast territories and reshaping the political landscape of the ancient world. But Daniel's visions don't stop there. In chapter 8, he sees another powerful image, a ram with 2 horns, symbolizing the Medes and Persians, charging in all directions and conquering lands. This ram symbolizes the might of Persia and its aggressive expansion under leaders like Cyrus and Darius. However, in the same vision, a goat with a prominent horn, symbolizing Greece and its future king, Alexander the Great, appears and swiftly defeats the ram, marking the end of the Persian Empire. Through these visions, God revealed that Persia's time of dominance was limited, and it would eventually fall to Greece. But Persia's role wasn't merely to conquer and rule. Its very existence and eventual decline were part of a prophetic timeline orchestrated by God, demonstrating his control over the destiny of empires. Persia was raised up for a season to fulfill a specific purpose in God's plan, and even its downfall was part of a larger story. Long after the Persian Empire had fallen, its influence persisted in subtle yet significant ways. One of the more mysterious connections between Persia and the New Testament is the story of the Magi, also known as the wise men, who traveled from the east to visit the newborn Jesus. Many scholars believe these wise men were likely from the region of Persia, where Zoroastrianism, a religion that practiced astrology and the interpretation of omens, was prevalent. The Magi's journey to Bethlehem symbolizes Persia's continued spiritual significance in the biblical narrative. These wise men, foreign scholars guided by a celestial sign, came to honor a king whom they recognized as divinely appointed. This recognition underscores Persia's enduring connection to the spiritual realm, even long after the fall of its empire. It's as if Persia, though removed from political dominance, still had a lingering role in bearing witness to divine events. This story of the Magi reminds us that Persia's legacy was not just military or political. Persia's influence on spiritual thought, particularly through Zoroastrianism's emphasis on prophecy and omens, left an imprint on the region, contributing to an environment that would eventually embrace the spread of Christianity. Unlike many ancient empires, Persia was known for its unique approach to governance. Under Cyrus the Great and his successors, Persia allowed its subjects to maintain their own religious practices, fostering an atmosphere of tolerance rare for the time. This policy helped Jewish communities thrive throughout the Persian Empire, giving them the freedom to rebuild their temple and practice their faith openly. Persia's policy of tolerance set the stage for a more interconnected ancient world, one where ideas and beliefs could travel freely. By the time of Jesus, the legacy of Persian tolerance had influenced the spread of Jewish communities across the region. This foundation created a network that would later help Christianity spread throughout the Roman Empire, making Persia an indirect contributor to the spread of the gospel. As we see, Persia's impact stretched beyond its political reign. Its contributions to cultural and religious tolerance played a critical role in shaping the spiritual landscape of the ancient world, preparing it for the arrival of a new message of redemption. The Bible's prophetic focus on Persia doesn't end with its historical narrative. In the book of Ezekiel, Persia is named alongside other nations in a dramatic prophecy that has yet to unfold. A prophecy that envisions a coalition of nations gathering for a final, earth-shattering confrontation. This prophecy, often referred to as the War of Gog and Magog, describes a future alliance led by Gog of Magog, joined by nations that will come against Israel. Among these allies is Persia, indicating that Iran's influence and involvement with Israel will continue well into the future. Ezekiel's vision is one of the most detailed prophecies about a future conflict involving Israel, and it paints a picture of a massive, multi-nation alliance determined to wage war against God's chosen people. Though the exact timing of this battle remains uncertain, its implications are profound, suggesting a final confrontation between the forces of darkness and the people of God. In Ezekiel 38:39, the prophet describes an alliance led by Gog, a ruler from the land of Magog, who will gather a coalition that includes Persia, Cush, Put, and other nations. Together, they will march against Israel in what is foretold as an epic, cataclysmic battle. This prophecy envisions a confrontation that will test the faith of Israel and demonstrate God's sovereignty over all nations. The inclusion of Persia in this prophecy is significant. Even after centuries have passed since its historical empire fell, Persia, now Iran, remains a central player in the prophetic narrative. This continuity emphasizes that God's purposes transcend time, with Persia playing an essential role from the time of Cyrus to the end times. The exact nature of Persia's role in this future event is still debated among theologians, but its inclusion suggests that Iran's spiritual significance has not diminished, and that it will have an active role in the climactic moments of human history. Daniel's visions, which trace the sequence of empires leading up to the end times, emphasize a recurring theme. God raises up nations, but he also brings them down. Persia's rise and eventual fall to Greece was not an isolated event, but part of a divine narrative, one in which empires come and go, each fulfilling a role in God's timeline. Persia's destiny, just like Babylon, Greece, and Rome, was interwoven with the rise and fall of kingdoms according to a divine plan. The prophecies of Daniel emphasize that no empire, no matter how powerful, is exempt from God's control. Persia's eventual return to the prophetic spotlight in Ezekiel's vision underscores this theme of divine sovereignty. While the specific roles of Persia's allies in this end-times coalition remain a mystery, the prophecy suggests a future where Iran's influence in the region will become a point of great spiritual and political significance. The tensions involving Iran and Israel today can be seen as echoes of a deeper, spiritual story. The Bible reminds us that history is more than a series of political shifts. It's a divine narrative, with each nation playing a role in God's ultimate plan. By observing the dynamics between Iran and Israel, believers may find clues that point toward the fulfillment of ancient prophecies. In a world that often seems chaotic and unpredictable, the story of Persia offers a powerful reminder of God's sovereignty. Just as He used Persia to fulfill His purposes in the past, liberating Israel, preserving His people, and setting the stage for the coming Messiah, God can and will use nations to bring about His will in the future. The prophecies of Ezekiel and Daniel show us that no empire, no matter its strength, can resist God's plan. From the descendants of Japheth through Madai to the reign of Cyrus the Great, Persia's role in the Bible is nothing short of extraordinary. Persia became a divine tool in the restoration of Israel, protecting God's people in times of crisis and influencing the spiritual landscape of the ancient world. But Persia's significance doesn't end with its historical contributions. The prophecies of Daniel, Isaiah, and Ezekiel show that Persia was always part of God's larger plan. Iran's place in biblical prophecy points to its ongoing role in the events leading to the end times. These prophecies remind us that history is not simply the rise and fall of empires, but the unfolding of a divine story, a story that God has scripted from the beginning of time. The story of Persia is a testament to the truth that God can use any nation, any leader, and any event to fulfill His purposes. Persia, now Iran, continues to exert influence on the world stage, reminding us that history is ultimately about God's sovereignty. Every empire, every ruler, and every kingdom falls under His authority, woven into a narrative that will culminate in the fulfillment of His promises. As we watch world events unfold, the story of Persia serves as a reminder that God's hand is at work, even in the most unlikely places. The rise and fall of nations are not random events, but pieces of a divine puzzle, leading toward a grand conclusion in which God's purposes will be fully realized. This truth invites us to view our world not with fear, but with a sense of anticipation, trusting that God's plan will prevail. Please like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to this channel. Thank you.